Is now a good time to buy real estate on Maui? It is the beginning of February 2026, and the question I'm getting a whole lot is now a good time to buy here on Maui, or should I wait? I would love to see you like, comment, or subscribe below. I can't answer that question for you, but what I can do is share with you a lot of what I'm seeing here on Maui in real estate. My name is Benjamin Finnerty. I'm a local realtor here on Maui. I love surfing. The last couple days, yesterday I surfed 3 times. And now what we're going to talk about is what's happening in the real estate market here on Maui. Essentially, we've seen 2 separate markets start to happen for the last year to 2. Generally speaking, houses and condos, they kind of connect to each other. But what happened in 2024 after the Lahaina wildfires is the mayor introduced Bill 9, and the goal of Bill 9 was to make housing more affordable. Guess what? It worked. If we look at real estate here on Maui today, what we're gonna see is a huge change from what was happening before the August 8th, 2023 wildfire, and things have changed a whole lot, let me tell you. First of all, let's talk about houses. In 2023 and into 2024, we saw the median price of houses in the $1.3 to $1.4 million range. That is a really high price for a single family home. Condos we saw in the 700s. Now, 2.5 years later, what we've seen is a huge drop. Not only have we seen a huge drop in prices, we've also seen a significant increase in inventory. That inventory has not been equal across the board. House inventory has crept up a bit. Condo inventory has jumped. We've jumped from in the 2s upwards of 300 condos on market to nearly 900. Think about that. 300 condos for sale versus 900. What do you think that's gonna do? Well, what it has done is it has increased the opportunities for people who are willing to buy condos. In the last few months, I've gotten for 2 separate clients condos at the lowest prices in 2 separate complexes in 4 to 5 years. One of those complexes was Kihei Villages. Another one was Kihei Kainani. If we look across the board, let's look at some numbers specifically. Year over year, the price of single family homes has come down between 3 and 4%. If we look at the drop from the high point a couple of years back, what we're going to see is it's down a little bit over 10%, from over 1.4 million now to what we see is 1.15 million. Condos, on the other hand, the median price is 595 to 625. In many ways, the condo market has also gone into 2 separate areas. There are the condos that are impacted by Bill 9. Those are apartment zone vacation rentals. Maui currently has about 16,000 vacation rentals, and more than 7,000 were impacted by Bill 9. They are apartment zone condos, and according to Bill 9 as it passed, January 1, 2031, January 1, 2029 in South Maui and West Maui respectively, are looking at phasing out of those apartment zone vacation rentals. Now, what does that really mean? Those 7,000 apartment zone vacation rentals per Bill 9 need to be seen as residential condos. They're currently legal vacation rentals, and there's some nuance. Of those 7,000 condos, 4,500 of them have been earmarked to be put into a new hotel zone that is yet to be created, but it's in process. The way Bill 9 is written and passed says that as of January 1, 2031 and January 1, 2029, they are no longer to be vacation rentals. The prices on those has dropped around 30 or 40%. Other condos that are residential condos, they have also felt the impact, because when we see a huge chunk of condos that are currently vacation rentals that are going to be put into the non-vacation rental, they need to become residential. So prices have been impacted significantly. Residential condos on Maui, if we look at a few different complexes, South Point, if we look at Kihei Villages, if we look at Kihei Shores, if we look at Keonakai Villages, if we look at EL Parkside, if we look at all those condos, we've seen prices dramatically come down. So we were looking at around $650,000 for a second floor condo in Kihei Villages, South Point, Keonakai Villages was a little bit higher, and EL Parkside, they were all similar price. Now what we're seeing is the second floor condos are looking around the $400,000 price point, and the 2-bedroom ground floor condos are looking closer to the $500,000 price point. So $700,000 originally for ground floor, $650,000 for second floor. What we've seen is a significant increase in affordability. So if we look at Bill 9 with the intention of making housing more affordable on Maui, what we get is, well, housing costs a lot less. So let's do a little bit of math. If we have a $500,000 condo, now 20% down gets you a condo or gets you a mortgage that has no mortgage insurance. So let's just use that price. So $100,000. So we have $400,000 mortgage. $400,000 mortgage. On that, if we use a 6% interest rate, which is what we're seeing for a lot of residential properties on Maui, what we get is $24,000 a year. Now, if you take $24,000 and divide it by 2, that's $2,000 a month in interest. And now, if you add $500 to the principal, $700 or so, $2,500 to $2,700 in mortgage payment, and then you add the $700 of HOA fees in Kihei Villages, you get about $3,300, between $3,200 and $3,400 is the payment for your mortgage and your HOAs. Now, if we look at rent in that same complex, we're looking at between $2,500 and $2,700. It's not even. It's way different than when we were looking at $4,500 before to $5,000 when it was a $650,000 condo, and we see a significant increase in affordability. Now, we might see prices come down even more. It's possible. Who knows? Crazier things have happened, right? That example right there, when we see $3,300 a month, that's not including tax, that's not including electricity, but property tax on Maui, if you live there, it's pretty low. For those $400,000 to $500,000 condos, we're gonna see somewhere around $400 or $500 to maybe $700 or $800 max per year. So that's, between $50 and $80 a month. Now, is that a good time to buy? I don't know. What is your perspective? It all depends on what you need and what your goals are. The other perspective is for people that are not gonna live in that condo. Is it worth it to them? Well, you do the math. If you are an investor and you're gonna buy one of those condos, if you're gonna get a mortgage on it, you're gonna be losing $500 or $600 a month. Is it worth it? I'm gonna think no. If you are gonna buy that condo and you're thinking, well, hey, appreciation is something that has generally happened. If we look at the US, from the 1970s, we've seen about a 4% average over all those years in annual appreciation. Now, that 4% average, if you add that all up, we look at $500,000, 4% is gonna be $20,000, and then it's gonna be 4% of 520. We're gonna see an increase in value per year. That's something that you gotta look at in a long-term way. You can't think about, hey, I'm gonna see that increase next year, because it might not. However, long term, probably what's gonna happen is we will see price appreciation continue. Now, as of 3 years ago, if we had done the math here in Hawaii, we saw about a 7% average in appreciation over all those years. Now, we've come down a bit in values here on Maui at least, and that number is gonna have dropped a little bit. Probably when we think about the value of land here on Maui, it's probably gonna not be a lot more housing units here, because Maui isn't a place that builds a lot. So likely what we're going to see is we're going to see an increase in appreciation over time because, hey, real estate goes up. Now, we can't expect that it's going to increase anything like it did before. If we just use the US average of 4% per year, well, probably what we're going to see is prices will increase at some point. Now, what I've been trying to communicate to as many people as possible, because there's a lot of people that says, hey, Maui is really too expensive. And I agree, Maui's a really expensive place to live. We pay a lot to live here, and it's really, really sometimes hard to deal with the cost of housing. However, right now is a really good opportunity. I figure as soon as those numbers get close to par, like let's just say we have a condo go from, let's use a $400,000 price point. Let's go $300,000 here. $300,000. What is $300,000 in value? Well, if you take that same 20% and you go $60,000, now we have a $240,000 mortgage. And let me tell you, there is a condo for sale here in Kihei that's $365,000. It's on market, and it's been on market for a little while. Nice property. It's a little bit close to the main road, so it hasn't sold yet. That price of $365,000, if we do the same math, let's just use the $300,000 on that one. What's 6% of $300,000? Well, that is $18,000. That is $1,500 a month. Now, if we take and we add, let's add $1,000 onto that. That's $2,500 a month. $2,500 a month in mortgage, and then you take that $700, and it's actually $725 now. So 2,500, 725, that's $3,225. That is getting even closer, and that is using a $365,000 price point. If we go $240,000, 6% of 240, now we're going to stretch my math skills a little bit. 12, 24, 14,400 in interest a year, so that's a little bit over 1,000, about 1,200 a month in interest, and then add, I mean, we can use $1,000, but it's probably really going to be something like 1,800 total in your mortgage payment, and then add that 725. Now we're at 2,525. Remember how I said rents are 2,300 to 2,700 a month here? Well, if we're paying $2,500 all in, and that is the total price of rent. Now, some people, now most investors are not going to think, hey, that's the deal. I want to get a house that doesn't get me an increase in payment. If they're making $100 a month, maybe not going to want to do that on a $300,000 investment. However, what if it becomes $300 a month? Somebody's going to want to buy that and put it into a rental. So if we get down to this $300,000 price point, I don't expect that we're going to see them on the market still. We're going to see people buying them up, and there's going to be people that live in California. They're going to say, hey, I got $300,000. I'm just going to buy that because I like Maui, and maybe I'll go there twice a year. So what I'm trying to communicate to anybody who has considered this, every single person I talk to that says housing costs too much on Maui, I'm just going to rent forever. I say, well, what about a condo? Why don't you consider one of these condos? Let's put a $300,000 offer on that one that's listed at $365,000. Why? Because what if they say yes? Wouldn't that be crazy? Then you're going to have a $2,500 a month all-in payment. Now, to me, I see that when rent is $2,500 and you have $2,500, it's a no-brainer. If your rent is $2,500 and your payment is $2,500, including your HOA fees, that is a hard yes, because it doesn't make sense to say no. So if we look at some other aspects of what's going on, we can look at the luxury market. To be honest, luxury housing is very different in different sections. I've seen properties from Ho'ole, which is a luxury condominium complex directly across the street from the Grand Wailea. In 2020, let's see, I think it was 2023, the beginning of the year, one of those closed at $6,250,000, and then one closed last April at $4,150,000. So that looks like a huge drop. However, that was the only one. The rest of them are still listed. Now there's some that don't have a view like the one that sold that are still listed in the high 4 millions, and those aren't selling. So we've seen prices come down there. There's places like Wailea Elua that are not coming down because people don't need to sell. If we look at vacation rentals are extremely interesting. Over the years, we've seen people really get into vacation rentals, and we're talking now no more of the apartment zone vacation rentals. I want to talk only about the hotel zone, the business zone, or the resort zone vacation rentals. Now, Menehune Shores is a condo complex in North Kihei. It's right on the Kalipolo fish pond, 27 times 6, so it's going to be about 160 of them. Now there's a rooftop barbecue in there. We've got one listed in there. It's close to the road, so some people are going to like it, but it's listed at $999,000. Guess when the last one in that complex sold for under $1 million? It was May 2022. So we're looking at about 4 years since we've seen one at that price. In Kihei, a hotel zone vacation rental complex where I own one of them, 1-bedroom condos there sell in the 800,000s, upwards. I think the highest one sold at 900 in the D building on the 5th floor. And now what we're seeing is we saw one on this in the C building sell on the 6th floor for $620,000 a couple months back. So we've seen a significant drop there. There's a condo for sale in Kihei Ali'ikai, and that one is listed at $689,000. Currently, it's got a big ocean view, and it's a really solid value if that's what you're looking for. Now, a couple years back, those 1-bedroom big ocean views condos, they would have got upwards of $80, $90 to $100,000 a year, depending on how they were rented. And now we're probably looking at realistically around 60 or 70 max if they're rented excellently. Well, those condos now are looking at a significant decrease in rents. But here's the thing. Do you believe Maui is going to be an excellent destination in the future? If it is, it probably is a good time to consider if having a hotel zone legal vacation rental is something that you're into. It might be a good idea to consider checking those out. Now, when we look at West Maui and we look at places like the Whaler, Ka'anapali Ali'i, or Kahana Villa, what we're seeing is a really different story. In places like the Whaler and Ka'anapali Ali'i, generally speaking, what we're seeing is prices hold fairly steady. There's a couple reasons for that, in my opinion, is what we see is although we've seen an increase in inventory there, currently we have about 12 on market in Ka'anapali Ali'i, 9 on market in the Whaler. Because that's a different location, it is Ka'anapali Beach, what we're seeing people generally hold steady in their prices. There hasn't been any fire sales in there. And what we're seeing is prices hold steady. If you go just north of Ka'anapali to Honokauai, different story. All of Honokauai, all the condos in there except for one, are apartment zone. The one that is an apartment zone is Kulikane. Now, a lot of people say Papakea is hotel zone. Well, there is a section of the very front part of Papakea that is very close to the road there that is hotel zoned. And as a hotel zone condo, if you look at almost all the condos in Papakea per the Maui County zoning map, which you can find online, what you see is almost all of them are located in the apartment zone, whereas a very front section of the property is a hotel zone. However, I don't know who's gonna have to answer that one, because what we see is that property has lost huge price-wise. 1-bedroom condos in Papakea were selling for $1 million, and now there's multiple 1-bedroom condos you can get for half price. There's 2 factors there. One of them is they're dealing with a little bit of a plumbing fix where they got to take care of that, but it's apartment zoned. And the value is much less. And also with the Lahaina fires, we're seeing way lower occupancy for the rental numbers in there. And the fact is that the numbers are still pretty low. They will increase over time. Now, if you look at all of everything in Honokauai, it's a very similar story. Whereas we were looking at $600,000 or $700,000 for a leasehold complex in there, or leasehold condo in there before, now we're seeing multiple ones on sale in the 300,000s. If we go up to Kahana, we see Royal Kahana and Valley Isle, whereas they were selling in 2022 and 23, 800,000 for one bedrooms. Now we're seeing two bedrooms sell for 500,000 and 600,000 in Valley Isle. And Royal Kahana, although prices are a little higher, studios were selling for 600 in there. And now we're seeing studios in the fours. Now, all these condos, what we're seeing is, and those are all hotel zone. Valley Isle, Sands of Kahana, Royal Kahana, Kahana Villa, Hololani, those are all hotel zone. And we're seeing prices come down really significantly. So here's the thing. If you want a condo on Maui, probably statistically speaking, what we're gonna have to say is it's probably a good time to buy. Whether or not we look back in the future and we say, wow, that was a good time to buy, I'm currently considering buying another condo here on Maui because I see it as it's a long-term play. I believe that Maui is gonna be an amazing place to be for a really long time, and I'm gonna stay here, and I see real estate on Maui is going up, but that's not something you have to decide for yourself. Is it a good time to buy on Maui? Maybe. What are your goals? What are your needs? What do you want? Do you love the island of Maui? Can you add value here? All the time I get investors asking me, what do the numbers look like? And I say, well, do you love Maui? Do you want to spend time here? Because if you don't love Maui, if you're only looking at it from an investor's perspective, I can tell you the numbers don't work. They just don't. If you believe in the future of Maui, if you think that appreciation is going to occur, if you are a resident of the West Coast of the United States and you love coming to Maui three weeks a year, a month and a half, if you love coming to Maui, then one of those vacation rentals really might make sense because guess what? Every trip becomes a business expense because now you have a business on Maui. If you have any questions at all, my name is Benjamin Finnerty. We can have a conversation about whether or not it's a good time to buy on Maui for you. If you're a resident of Maui and you've been asking yourself this, a lot of people want a house, and I get that. I want a house too. I've been living in condos for 25 years. I live in a house now. But I'm thinking about buying another condo because it's just a really good value. So if you're thinking about property on Maui, look me up. Let's have a conversation. Aloha.